Good morning, everybody. This is John Eliason. Chuck, are you there?
I'm here. Good morning.
All right. Well, Chuck's over in Studio B. John's in Studio C, so we can't really see each other here today. But
right.
Welcome, man. And talk about I know it's probably always beautiful where you are. Living in Minnesota, it's not. I mean, it's not every day. It's a beautiful day, but today, man, it's stunning. It's stunning outside. Man, it sure does put a different spring in your step. Hey, today we're talking about two different things. Once we're talking about tie downs, and I know we've talked about that a handful of times before, but it's worth touching base on again, just refreshing everybody, maybe getting some input from you guys. The other thing we're going to talk about is targets. Over the weekend, one of the things that I do and Chuck does is before accounting sends residual money out, we've got to scan through and sign off on it. And a couple things, and if there's anything out of the ordinary, then we look into it and see what, like a big spike. For example, I saw a big spike in a couple people's income, and so I asked, what's going on? Is there, what happened here? And what came back was something. It was an interesting answer. And it was all right. It was all right. All this money was supposed to go out, or is supposed to go out, and so we'll talk about some targets. Why these people experience such a big spike in their income, and it was all because the same sort of targets. Anyway, but first of all, let's talk about tie downs. Tie downs are an interesting thing, and most people don't use them very effectively. It's interesting. A lot of people, then when we go out selling stuff, we kind of sell stuff like the world has we sell like the rest of the world sells often. And the rest of the world in the sales business, they don't make really enough money. It's like, I think it's why the title of salesman, if you're at a cocktail party and you go, "Oh, what do you do?" And you go, "Well, I'm a salesman." They go, "Oh, okay, I'm going to go talk to somebody else." But I think I think it is the most cool and honorable and probably the coolest profession you could ever choose, because if you own the technique, if you own good sales, you can go anywhere, anytime, and sell anything, and it doesn't matter. You can go to the other side of the planet as long as you've got the language down. Where it's interesting to see, like when people, like I met I'm sure you have too. You've met all kinds of professional level people from other countries who come here and aren't necessarily doing what they did back there because they can't do their high level. They were a doctor. They were a doctor in Afghanistan or whatever. They come here and now they're a janitor or something. If you're good at sales, this is transferable. And probably the biggest thing in sales, I mean, granted there's two, beyond rapport and relationship, the next big thing is tie downs. And also I wanted to make sure to point out, when you go under FFUSA University under Launch, Chuck does a fantastic video called Sales Process. And he opens up this saying something to the effect of, he says, we go about this a little bit differently. We found that this different sort of sales process ends up earning different sort of money. In fact, 4 times more than what we see people use the old standard, what the world teaches us that really most every salesperson in America does. It's this blunt instrument sort of sales thing that they never really get a lot of traction. And this way that we found to do it, literally, and from this perspective, not only do we see who makes the residuals and from what targets, and we look at how they operate and the way that they sell. These people literally make 4 times more money when they use this process. And one of the keys is tie downs. And if you aren't familiar exactly with what a tie down is, it's really that old-fashioned "if I could, would you?" It's simply asking, if I can do this, can I get your business? And most people don't do that very well. And I did it horribly, absolutely horribly, back when. I can think of literally a very specific moment in my life when I was selling, and it's like, man, it was frustrating. I was struggling. It was frustrating. I was doing okay. I was doing better than most in the crowd because because I could build good rapport and relationship. For me, that's just an easy, natural thing to do. But then when it came down to there's a shift. You see the people that can build rapport and relationship can usually be decent salespeople. But if you want to and succeed, now you aren't going to thrive, you aren't going to have fantastic success, but you can succeed. But the thing that takes you from just succeeding and not failing, the difference between making it and not is that rapport and relationship. But the difference between just being able to survive and the difference and those that thrive is this little tie down thing. And pardon my French, but I sucked at it. I knew what I was supposed to do, and it frustrated the heck out of me because you've ever been in the situation where you know what you should do and you don't, and then it turns out bad. And it's like, I knew I should have done this differently, and I continued to do the same thing, and it drove me nuts. Specifically, where it was when you're talking to wherever your target is, let's say a merchant, and you know that you should be saying something like, after you're talking, let's say in our scenario, where we get statements, and right there when you get statements, and before you send them off to your director or whomever you're dealing with here, or before, even if you're one of the people on the team that doesn't send it to a director, you do it yourself. Right there, the thing that I didn't do was tie them down. What I'd do is I'd get the information, then I'd invest a whole lot of time, energy, and effort finding something better for them. Then I'd go back, and they'd go, yeah, let me think about it. And I had nothing to say at that point besides trying to resell them. Does this sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So the difference, what I found is that, and what we find here is that if right there, if you go, all right, hey, and Chuck, I hate to put you on, well, it's good to put you on the spot here.
You always put me on the spot. I'm used to it.
I know. At that point, what would you say? You got the statements before you leave and before you take another step in any direction. What do you say right here?
Well, I kind of set out like tell a little story, and I go, hey, you know what, I really appreciate the opportunity for your business. I think this is going to be a great thing. Says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fax these over to my underwriter, and look, I'm going to really lobby hard. I'm going to push them hard to get you a great deal. But when I do that and I get you that great deal, are we moving forward right away?
Perfect. And Chuck, I've heard him say that 900 million times. Swear to God, I could recite it, but I wanted him to say it so you get a different voice. And that little magical piece right there is the difference between those people that use that little tidbit right there make 4 times more money. And it's an easy little thing to install, but for me it was hard because what it meant right there is they might say no. They might say, well, maybe. They might say all kinds of things other than yes, and that clearly, was frightening to me that I'd maybe have some adversity there. But the thing is, if you don't overcome it there, then what happens is way too often, 4 times too often, you spend your life, pieces of your life, doing research and finding the best thing, then going back and they don't move forward. And it's better I found that it's better right there to overcome whatever objection there is and get them to say yes. Otherwise it's not worth my time going forward. It's a much better investment to if they say no, I'm really fine. If there's nothing you can do there, good. I'm gonna use a 4-letter word at that point, and it's next. And I'm gonna go find somebody else, because all I want to do is I just want to find yeses at that point, because that we can figure out how to make it work from there. And
it's kind of when you tell that fish or cut bait kind of thing, and I'd rather know right here, I think, instead of going through all this other work. But when you say a little story like, look, I'm going to run this by my underwriter, and I'm really going to push him to get you a great deal, what I found, that kind of softens it a little bit, because in their mind, it kind of puts you on the same side of the fence as them, like you're on their team, and you are. But if you just go, hey, okay, so if I can get you a better deal, we can move forward then. To me, that was always a lot less impactful than like a little story behind it, because then they can kind of envision what you're doing. Like, man, this guy's in the trenches fighting for me, So that always helped too.
Yeah, absolutely. And what it does, it puts you on the same side as them, which is the right thing to do. It's a story, which is always the best way to sell. And it's little triggers. They're just little triggers that it lights up in them that are all good and green or gold or whatever. And it's easy when you use a story, it's more likely that they say yes. Way more likely that they say yes, because you do soften it, and it does get you on the same side as each other. So when you use that, it's monstrously successful, and it's not that tricky. But I had a heck of a time. I didn't have anybody giving me the little story like Chuck just gave you. It was like, man, I got to figure this out on my own, and I didn't know what to do. And so my little thing was, maybe this will help you. And it's a goofy little story, but sometimes goofy works. And so what I did is I envisioned, because I had a heck of a time, I knew what I was supposed to say, but I didn't say it. And now you've got this little story that you can insert. But will you, if you have any sort of trouble, here's what I used. I came up with I scripted out something that I could say at that point, and that's good with, and it wasn't quite as good as the one Chuck just gave you, but I had to come up with something. And so what I did is I had my little script, and then it was almost like I could envision. I'd almost like step out of my body a little bit, and I would look at me, and I'd look at the merchant, and it was like when I could step out of my body, then I could manipulate what the guy that looked like me sitting there across from the merchant was saying. It was almost like I made him into a little Muppet. I'd like slide my hands in the back of his neck and into his mouth, and I could make him say what he's supposed to say. And for me, that worked. It took like the stress out of the deal, because if I'm outside of the situation, the emotion's gone, and I'm just making this guy say what I know he needs to say. And then I did that a couple times. I was like, wow, that worked. It took the fear, the emotion. It wasn't me talking to the merchant; it was the puppet. And imagine, you've got I was the sock puppet, and the merchant was the merchant. And it worked. And after a while, it's like, look, there's too many people here. I just could do it naturally. Does that make sense?
What did the sock puppet say, John?
I don't remember. Well, it was something like the story. Hey, I don't remember what I made him say, but there are a lot of points in life, whether it's life or business, where you know what you're supposed to say right there. And sometimes it's better to take yourself kind of out emotionally. People, when you hear sometimes they go, take the emotion out. Sometimes it's great to have the emotion in, because you want to have this, heartfelt conversation and speak from that point. But sometimes in a more of a potentially confrontational, if you're not comfortable with it, to take yourself out, because sometimes you chicken out, and you don't say the things that you need to say. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if it's where in life. You can imagine all kinds of scenarios. This can help you in those scenarios, and it can help you because we see that probably 98.5% of all people don't do this. They don't do it. They just glide along hoping that what they did so far is going to be impactful enough that when they get the whatever back from us, and go and then talk to the merchant, that is good enough. But what you find is that it's only about 25% good enough, and it's 400% better if you just make sure you ask that little tie down, and then deal with whatever objections come up at that point.
And tie downs, I mean, I think that somebody's coming to forward here. There we go. And understand too, I think what's important that and that's probably the biggest tie down you use in the sales process is at the point of getting the statement. But what I try to do is throughout any time I talk about a key issue, maybe their equipment, or maybe how they take a credit card, or what they anticipate doing. I always want to seek agreement on key issues, and I do that via tie down. And I'll do things like, well, does that make sense then? Or I'm sure you'd agree, right, that this would be better for you. That needs to be laced throughout your whole sales process. And then that big one is, all right, if I can do this and send it to my underwriter to get you a better deal, we can move forward, right? But before you get there, you're probably going to see scenarios where you're tying down. Because because I think in the sales process, you probably talk about maybe 4 or 5 different concepts. And what I'd like to do is, before I move from one concept to another, I want to make sure they're tied down on the first one. before I get to the third one. And I think what a lot of salespeople do is they just talk and just keep talking and then keep talking, and then they finally get to the point where they get the statements, and then they use a tie down. But there's a couple other things maybe that they didn't agree on before then. Because you're going to use tie downs again when it comes time to filling out paperwork, right?
And what you just said, that right was a tie down, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm tying you down. You right? You're going to do other tie downs before you get to paperwork? Or when you get to the paperwork, you're gonna use a tie down there, because when you go through their statement with them, and let's take a hypothetical statement, and let's say they're paying 2% and you're coming in at 1.5%, and you go, well, boy, I bet you'd much rather pay 1.5% instead of 2%, wouldn't you? Would you agree with that? That's a tie down. So you want to use those anytime you talk about something like that, or oh yeah, your mid-qual rate's 3%. We can come in at 2.5%. That's much better, isn't it? Would that help you putting that in your pocket? Would you rather have that go in your pocket instead of the bank's pocket? Constantly tied down.
Is it an important thing then, Chuck, after you ask the question, that you pause and wait for an answer, or do you just go on to the next thing?
Well, I think it really depends. I think in the big one, yeah, you got to wait for the answer. Like, if I could, would you? Where like talk to my underwriters. What I do is when I'm talking to them, because most of you guys are face to face when you're dealing with your merchant. What I do is when I'm saying these things, my head's nodding up and down. I go, I'm sure that would help you much better, wouldn't it? And then I make eye contact with them, and they're nodding with me. And I go, okay. But most of the time, you got to get some affirmation that they agree, whether it be, oh yeah, I definitely agree with that, or like an equivocal yeah, like they're shaking their head up and down. You got to get some sort of response, or you can't move on.
Right. Any comments about that? Questions like that doesn't make a lick of sense, you goofballs, or yeah.
We're used to hearing that.
Yeah, it's common.
It's common. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Could I ask you guys?
That makes a lot of sense.
To do something for us, and that is, Chuck, you and John. There's also a lot of negative that comes in here. You'll have some jerk that you'll say, if I can do this for you, can we?
Are you
move
talking
forward?
about Chuck and John still?
No, of course not.
Oh, okay.
I brag about you guys all the time.
We appreciate that.
When you've got a guy that you're up against, and you're talking with him, and you've got the tie down, you say, if you get to the point where you've got the statements, you say, I'm really going to work hard with my underwriter to really get you a great plan, and in doing that, can we move forward?
Right.
And the guy says, well, I don't know.
Well, what I say right from there, if he goes, well, are you asking me what I would say next?
No.
I go, well, let me ask you. And I'm very confident I can do this for you. I can get you a much better deal. What would prohibit you from moving forward then? What would stop you? And they go, well, and then sometimes this is, when I ask that, I don't, unless he's got a real quick answer, because usually what a guy like that's going to go, well, and I go, well, I mean, you did agree earlier, right, that by putting more money back into your pocket, that would help your business?
Uh-huh.
Well, yeah, I did agree with that. Okay, so what would stop you from moving forward then?
I like the what would stop you. I love that.
Yeah, well,
and look what Chuck did too. He could not say what he said unless he tied him down earlier, because what he said is, well, you did say that by getting this would be better for you, didn't you? And unless he tied them down at that point, back when he asked that question, if all he did was tell them, hey, this is going to be much better for your business, and then rolled on, and then they had the objection, he would have nothing to go back on because he didn't tie him down. That's the magic. Therein lies the magic of the tie down right there. Otherwise, you got nothing.
You got no leverage.
Yeah, you go, well, you can't say you did say, because he didn't agree. You said it.
Right.
You can say it as long as he agrees with it. Then that's a tie down, and that can be there. There's the magic. It's not that.
Well, there's the. I mean, we told you the tie down, but we haven't told you how to use it. Really, here's how you use a tie down. But really, when you go, if I could, would you? Sure, that's the tie down. But
Right.
where it comes in handy is like, especially when you come back with the statements later, and you're going through and you're going, I'm sure you'd much rather pay this, right? Yes, 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 yes. And then he goes, well, I want to think about it. Because this is not what they all say, but this is the most common objection, because that's the universal objection. You can get that in any sales deal you're ever in. You get, oh, I need to think about it. And then if you've tied down, if you've shored this thing up like you're supposed to, you can go, hey, you know what, I guess I understand where you're coming from a little bit, but let me ask you, Mr. and Mrs. Merchant. I mean, when you and I spoke the first time, you did agree, right? You did say that, yes, if you go out and push your underwriter and get me a better deal, I'll move forward with you. And right about here, they start going, yeah. And I go, well, let me ask you. I mean, I did get you a better deal, right? Yeah, and you did agree that you'd much rather have this $800 a year back into your pocket instead of the bank's pocket, right? Yeah. I go, you know what? Let's just do this deal. And then I go, okay, what's the legal name of the business? And they go, and usually right there, when you give them about 2 examples where they agreed with you, they go, yeah, all right, let's move forward. Yeah. But if you go through and you tell, because that's why they always say selling is not telling. You know, when you're going through and you're working with the merchant and you're going, yeah, this is going to save you a lot of money, and what we'll do is we'll do this and that and this and that. Hey, I need a favor. Can you give me a copy of your last 2 months merchant statements? And they go, sure. And you go, great. I'm going to go get a better deal from you, and I'll be back. Is 3 o'clock work better for you? And they go, yeah, that's fine. Then when I come back, I've got no leverage at all.
None. None
You
at
know,
all.
none. But even if I go, I'm sure it'd help you to put a little more money or have a little better program back in your business, wouldn't it? And they go, yeah. I go, great. Then I get the statements, and then I go, great, I'm really going to push my underwriters to get you a better deal. And he goes, well, we'll see. And I go, well, you did just say, 4 breaths ago, you did say, right, that putting more money back in your business would help you out? Well, yeah, I did say that. Oh, okay, so what would stop you from moving forward when I do that then? And you know what the cool thing about that too, and the use of those properly, is sometimes there's a legitimate objection. Well, I have 6 months left of my agreement, or whatever they feel might be a legitimate objection. Let me just say that. Oh, I got to talk to my business partner, or whatever it is. At least with that, you actually uncover what the real objection is, and then all you got to do is handle the objection. It's just a step process. It's simple. Tie down. If an objection comes up, okay, you handle the objection. And the first thing you do after handling an objection is you tie them down again. It's like you're this constant tie down machine. And then you've shored it up. You've left nothing on the table. That's a great question too. What do you do when they say, well, no, maybe? Well, here's what you got to do. That's a great question.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Cam.
Hey, Chuck, this is Mark McCarthy calling. What do you think the percentage is after you tie them down in the beginning? What's your percentage that you didn't get them? What do you think the number is?
The
85, 90%?
That I did get them?
No, I mean, that you did get them.
I close definitely 85, 90% of the time.
And you had those few, because I just had one recently. I did all the right things, and he came back with some stuff in the end, I didn't get it. And he used the same process he was going with, even though I try to tell him in the beginning, I don't know if this is any good, that if I'm going to work hard for you, these people have been charging you this much, and would you go back to them knowing that they charge you this much? I mean, you're going to give them the business? I try to point that out. I don't know if that's something you would do.
Well, I think there's some merit to that, because that's what happens a lot is merchants, they go, well, I'm going to call my current company. And my mother told me something when I was really young. She says, you know what? Screw me once, shame on you. Screw me twice, shame on me. If I'm dumb enough to get screwed twice by you, I deserve it.
Gotcha.
Think about that. I mean, what? Okay, so, okay. And you know what? And I know a lot of it is, obviously there's got to be profit built into this deal for everybody. And we can easily go in and save somebody money from their current relationship. That's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. And someone's going to do it to us. And you got to play the drama card a little bit. And what I would say to a merchant is I'd say, look, if they gave me any flack from there, I'd say, well, let me ask you this. And I always said, let me ask you, because it's very non-threatening. Let me ask you, Or why don't we do this? Let me ask you. Where people just go, if the guy goes, well, I need to think about it, and I hear salespeople that go, well, why's that? And it's like, and you wonder why you're failing. You wonder why you're broke. He's going, well, why? Why not? And it's like confrontational. And in confrontation, no one wins. You gotta handle it with a little savvy. Well, let me ask you this. I understand where you're coming from. I get it. But wouldn't you agree? Notice how I'm setting this up, guys? Do you hear the words I'm using?
Yeah.
I hope you do. Can you guys all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure sometimes my phone mutes out. So what I would do is I go, hey, let me ask you this. And I'm sure you'd agree, wouldn't you? That, I mean, do you really want to be in business with a company that, sure, they'll give you a better deal now that I've come in and I've showed you that there's something better? I mean, you ever hear screw me once, shame on you, screw me twice, shame on me? I mean, look, I'm giving you a great deal out of the chute. You got to bring this in there. You got to I call it casting doubt. You have to cast doubt to them so they start questioning their current relationship. And they go, oh, well, but I don't go, well, you don't want to, I don't tell them, though. You can't tell them. Well, you don't want to deal with somebody that, will finally give you a better deal just because I'm here. You have to say, you don't have to do anything. I'm just telling you the best way that I've seen to make
No, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I would go, well, let me ask you. I mean, I'm sure you'd agree, wouldn't you? That, I mean, do you really want to be in business with someone that, sure, after I come in and show you that there is that good a deal to be had, then they'll do it, but otherwise they were going to overcharge you all along? I mean, you don't want to do business with people like that, do you? You notice how I'm asking them?
Much smoother instead of telling them, yeah.
Yeah, if you tell them, and you know what, I revert back to when we're all kids. When your parents go, clean your room, it's like the minute you just want to rebel. You don't want to do it when you're told what to do. So even on a subconscious level with folks, when you're in there talking to them and you're telling them, they're closing off by the minute. But when you're asking them, because when someone asks you a question, it requires you to be engaged, right? Right.
Yeah.
Do you want your customer engaged with you? Or do you want your customer sitting there blank staring you, looking out the window going, I hope this guy leaves soon? What do you want? So if you're telling, they're disengaging. That's just the nature of the beast. But if you're asking questions, their mind is alert. They're engaged because they feel like John before. What's funny is when John goes, well, I'm going to put you on the spot. And I had to just for a second go, where are we again? Oh, yeah, you're asking me about the tie-down thing. Because you're asking questions. You're keeping it engaged. So, and those questions often lead right into the tie-down. Does that help, Mark?
Yeah, thank you. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Because I do that. I hate to get backdoored. I call it backdoored when they go back to the same person they were using. And oftentimes I've seen where they're getting charged a ridiculous amount, not just a few basis points. I'm talking 40, 50 to 1 basis point more.
Yeah,
but I say that, but I'm harsh. See, that's where I go wrong. The harshness of it.
Yeah, you can't be harsh. You gotta go, man, I tell you what, I can't in good conscience, support your idea going back to your current provider. I mean, really, you would agree, wouldn't you? And then right here, you would agree, wouldn't you? Or let me ask you this. I'm sure you'd agree, right? If you do it that way, because if people feel threatened, I don't know about you guys, but and I know some of you guys personally on the call, and you know me, but if someone threatens me, the first thing you do is your guard comes up, doesn't it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So if you're threatening to them, you're not getting the sale, and then you're mad. And that's where I always tell sales guys, I go, look, don't be mad at them because they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're people. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what people are programmed to do. I can't get mad at that. I get mad if I don't use all these little tools, these tie-down tools we've been talking about, and these leading questions and these direction questions. If I'm not using all those tools that I understand, I'm the one that messed it up. I'm not mad at him because he backdoored me. I'm mad at me because I didn't set it up right.
Also hurts your relationship if you ever were to get them as a customer.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. It hurts a relationship. And then, it's hard to get a relationship with someone when they feel like, that you were a little threatening.
I mean, I think I went overboard. I don't mean I sent Luca Brasi over to have him sign the contract, but you know,
Right.
I didn't go that far. But I mean,
Yeah, you thought about it though.
yeah, the blood of their brains will be on the contract unless their signature is. But no, I did not do that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear you're not going that far, man. That's good. Is there any other questions out there regarding that stuff? No.
No,
Right.
you can answer everything. I've been using the Luca Brasi deal. That's why I've been messing up.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's true. You know what? Another thing. I always quote my mom. I tell you, my mom.
I was really just kidding. I'm a huge Godfather fan, so I thought that was really fun.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But you know what? I was taught young, you attract more flies with honey than you do vinegar. So you got to think. It's almost like you almost kill them with kindness, you know. And I remember John used to tell me all the time we first started doing business together. It's like, you know what? Stand for nothing, fall for anything. I mean, you got to stand for something, but in your delivery to them, it's got to be nice and easy, and be savvy.
Nice and easy, but it's got to have savvy because it's got to have a little teeth. Tie downs have teeth.
Yeah,
you can
they
say
do.
it really nice. It's a nice, sweet. It's a nice tie down. It was great bedside manner, but it has teeth, so that you can go back, so you can use it and come back and refer to it. Well, you did say, and that's it has teeth. It has teeth.
Yeah, that's the art, the beauty of the tie downs. You use them right, and then it's really hard for them to get away from you, because I think all in all, most people want to stand by their word, and they don't want to be called out. Like, I did say that, but I'm not doing it. I think most people don't like that, so you use that to your advantage. But any other questions outside of that? Do you get maybe some roadblocks, maybe some bottleneck stuff that you guys are running into?
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you totally screwed the deal up and used no tie downs and messed everything all up, and you're so far out in left field, that you're at the point where you just pulled your deal off the table on your customer. Is there a way to put it back together? And I mean, because the deal's still alive, she hasn't made a choice. And the comment I got Friday was, well, I don't like to be pushed into anything. And I've been working with this lady for a month. I don't know where the push is coming from, but all I'm waiting for from her is voided checks, and she's just like still contacting every other merchant service company in the world to compare.
You know what? I think let me give you a couple things, and that's, you're in a situation that I can't tell you, and I'm sure John can attest. I mean, we've seen literally thousands of agents have been in the same situation that you're in. And I think the first, what I always do is a couple things. Number one is if I call them back, I got to call them with something new, something that I didn't have the last time I spoke to them. And, that's situational, so you can work your AD, we can talk later and come up with something. Another thing that worked so good for me, I don't know how this worked, is it just was slick, is I'd call somebody back, and I'm trying to get a tie down here, okay? Because sometimes if you haven't gotten them, you got to kind of get them later. So I'd call out of the blue, and I go, you know what? I had to call you because I was thinking about your deal last night, and when you and I spoke originally, you'd mentioned a couple things like you wanted to do this, right? Now I'm tying you down now. Remember when you and I spoke originally? I was thinking about this last night, and I had to reach out to you today. When you and I spoke the first time, you'd mentioned that you wanted to get you wanted to get a new terminal, didn't you? Yeah, I did. Okay, so I remember we got that figured out. And let me ask you, when we talked, you did, and even though I didn't get this tie down, I'm sure you'd agree, talking through this process, that putting more money back into your business would be a better situation for you, wouldn't it? Yes. And I outlined the deal. And I go, let me ask you, what do you think that you're going to find from some other company that's going to be all that much better than what I'm able to do for you?
Wow, that's awesome.
And they go, well, I want to think that, I'm thinking I can probably, I go, why don't we do this? Let's move forward, And if you happen to, out of happenstance, if you come across something that you think's that much better than what I'm doing for you, let's visit it at that time, and I'll go to my underwriters, and I'll see if we can either come close to it or match it or whatever. But what happens is you reach a point of diminishing return. So the hours and the time, and I'm going to, let me spitball some things at you real quick. It's like, okay, you're calling all these other companies and you're waiting for them to get back to you. Okay, think about this. You're waiting. Satisfy them. No, Okay. You're calling someone trying to do business with them, and you're waiting for them to come back to you. Imagine down the road you had a problem with your account, and you tried calling out to them. What are the odds they're going to get back to you then? You're trying to give them your business, and they won't even get back to you now. I mean, is that the kind of person you want to do business with?
No.
Heck
yeah,
no.
That's where we use that 4-letter word.
Next.
Yeah. And then the last thing. Can I give one more thing, John?
Yep. Absolutely.
One more thing is I'm kind of a high-strung guy, so, and I kind of bleed into it. But when I get aggressive, when I start getting aggressive, there's a little story I would say so they'd forgive my aggressive nature. I go, look, don't mistake my passion for being overly aggressive. But let me ask you, if I were your doctor and I prescribed medication to you that would prolong your life and you weren't taking it, would you want me to be passive about it, or would you want me to be as equally passionate about it as I am right now? What would you want? And they kind of laugh and they go, well, and I go, look, the reason why I'm so passionate and I'm so on this is because, you know what, everything that you and I talked about says this is a great working relationship. We talked about getting you a new terminal, and then I outlined the deal. We talked about these things. I says, you know what, let's move forward on this. What's the worst thing that could happen? I mean, don't you think we'd work great together? But see, you can't give up on this stuff. You have to be on it. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
Yeah, you got to be like relentless about it. What's that? I'm sorry.
It's probably why the life expectancy of a merchant service salesman is only 6 months. Most of them give up at this point.
Yeah, they give up. They don't use their tie downs, number one.
Anybody in anything, 6 months, man, I give most people a lot less than that because they just don't. It's the difference when we're talking about a salesperson. And that's a salesperson mentality. They're going in for one transaction and out, and then trying to find the next one. It's a dog's life. I mean, it's not a very good life. But if you go in this like you're actually building something, like this is you and it's real, and this isn't just a transaction. You're building a relationship. And I think maybe your scenario, this exact one that you're talking about, what are they looking for? If they're just looking to plug somebody in for a transaction, that's not going to be, they need somebody on their team that's going to be with them to handle the card processing for the business going forward. You're a person on their team. You're not here just to plug something in a jet. You're here, right? You want to be the last place that they ever have to go for credit, debit, gift cards, any sort of security, new terminals coming down the line, cards, shipping, all the stuff that continues to flow to you. As far as things that you need to maybe tweak or change or be able to accept or shift, this being able to accept cards isn't a one-time transaction. This is a dynamic, fluid sort of thing, and things change, and they're changing faster. Having been in this for 20 years, things didn't change for the first 10 years. For the first 6 years I was in those businesses, all the same. And then things really started to change because things got faster. There's digital, then there's hacking, and there's new cards. There's so many different things that keep coming. And Chuck, and I'll shift to a different. Chuck, when he was saying one of the most, and he let in like this when you're getting back to that merchant. Imagine if you called and said, I was thinking about you last night. And they go, what? Nobody ever says shit like that. Nobody says things like that. Nobody really seems to care that much about each other. Most salespeople are in it for a transaction, and that's what your target is thinking. He just wants. That's why they're looking at everybody under the sun, because they think that they can do a good job of just selecting one, plugging it in, and moving on. But nobody ever calls back. Nobody will ever do this. They won't call back like Chuck said. I was thinking about your deal last night. Or if you call back and go, I was thinking about you. It's like, wow, you were thinking about me. You took time. You were thinking about me. Yeah, I was. Can you imagine if I called you and go, I was thinking about your deal, and I was thinking about how I can help you get the things that you wanted to do. When has anybody in your life or anybody in this call, when has anybody ever done that to you, for you?
Never.
Probably never for most of us. And so when you do, and when you can imagine, can't you, that if somebody did that, that it'd be like, wow, it would grab your attention. Most people just call back and go, hey, I'm just seeing what's up. I'm just checking. Hey, do you get that voided check yet? Like, that's
hey,
nothing.
are you ready to move yet? Are you ready to go yet? Can we move on this? It's like you set it up wrong. And it's like you're.
Yeah, I did.
I'm just saying.
It was all me on that one.
Yeah.
Well, next time, do it differently. There's not much you.
No, it's all good, man. We just throw it out there. We're just excited about it. So.
We're all learning. You know what? We're all learning, right? And there's nothing you can do about what you've done. You can only go forward from here. And if you go forward from here with a little different ammo, a little different. That's why we do these calls, because if you come to these calls, it's called acceleration for a reason. It's like, how can we? Because we took a step back and said, how can we help you accelerate your deal? How can we help you understand just a few nuances that we've found throughout all this time and thousands, tens of, so many million exposures? How can we give you what we found best to help you achieve the things that you want? And it's little.
So what you're really saying is, how can you help me get out of the way of myself so I can move forward?
Man, all of us, right? I mean, we're all that. We're all human, like Chuck said. We're just bigger. We're just grown up little kids, right? And we learn the things we learn, how we learn them. It's you know what? But if you can find these little simple. People think that business is so complicated, and it's not. All it is you're communicating. Like Chuck said one time, and I thought it was brilliant. He said, sales
is this recorded? Is this recorded?
I went, isn't this the truth? He said, sales is just talking with a purpose. And I thought,
I don't think I said talking, but yeah.
No, he said
BSing.
Chuck said sales is just BSing with a purpose, but it's, call it whatever you want. It's communicating with a purpose, and you can see that tie downs are very purpose-filled communication. You're asking a question on purpose, and most of us is selling things. We're just never trained to do it. They were, everybody comes in and they think rapport and relationship is, hey, how's it going? Yeah, okay. Anyway, they don't really care what your answer is. They weren't thinking about you. And this is what Chuck in this video. This is like turning into Chuck Day. But under you, let's mark this day, this Chuck Day. But when you go under university and go under launch and look at the last video, it's called Sales Process. He talks about this, and he's standing in front of a whiteboard, and I'm looking at it right now, and it says introduction, and then the monstrous word, bigger than any others combined, says discovery. And that's that communication with a purpose, where you're talking with them, you're planting little seeds, you're asking questions that are later used as tie downs, or used tie downs that you later used to come back to make sure you get the deal. And there's just some simple little things that you use repeatedly, and it literally. You want to increase your business 4 times like we see that the people that use these do, then all you got to do is work on them. Work on them. Use the little puppet scenario if that helps you like it did for me. I had to work on them. I still work. We're all working on ourselves.
Well, it totally works because...
Yeah, it does.
I know this sounds crazy, but I also sell stuff at the flea market on the weekend. And this weekend, rather than just throwing prices and trying to sell the people that I was talking to, I started having slight conversations with them and using a tie down here and a tie down there. And I doubled what I normally do on a weekend. So it works.
Good job.
The people were a lot more responsive.
Yeah.
Good for you.
You got to be different. You got to be different. I embarrass my daughter's a Girl Scout, so she's selling Girl Scout cookies, and she's in a grocery store this weekend. And I go, hey, you got to think of something. She just, like, when people walk by, she just go, hi. And, she's a cute 14-year-old kid, so that worked a little bit. And I go, no, you got to get better. you got to get more aggressive. And she goes, well, like what? And I go, when you see people walk by, I want you to ask them a question. Imagine that. Ask a question. And the question was, now you did put Girl Scout cookies on your shopping list today, right?
Oh.
She goes, that's silly. That's silly. And so everybody.
Can you imagine Chuck doing sales training for the Girl Scouts?
I know. Exactly. I was like, you sell. Come on. No. So she's like, Dad, that's silly. It'll never work. So I was sitting there at her booth, and I was these couple gals walked by, and this lady was looking at her shopping list in her hand, and I yelled out to her. I says, hey, you got Girl Scout cookies on that list, don't you? And she looked over and she kind of laughed. She goes, oh, you know what? I guess I could get a couple boxes. And my kid looked at me like, it just total like, I don't know if I love you or hate you right now, but it worked. It worked. It worked exactly how you said it would work. And I go, yeah, that's different. Don't be like every other Girl Scout selling out there. You want to be better. And I go, so when they walk by, I go, hey, so anyway, she sold over 200 boxes yesterday. And
wow.
She goes, Dad,
awesome.
She goes, that worked great. She goes, everybody that walked by says, you got Girl Scout cookies on your list today, right? And she goes, people wouldn't even have bought if I didn't ask them. And I go, right, you got to ask questions. So you just got to, you got to be different. And I think, you do that and you'll definitely shine. You'll definitely shine. Anyway,
and you don't have to be different in a big way. Like that was, all it was installing a question. And so you stand out. You can be radically different from the rest of the crowd by doing one simple thing like that. I bet a million Girl Scouts don't ask that question. One does. Is she selling something different? Is she dressed in a different Girl Scout uniform? Does she, nothing. Nothing is different, except she's asking that one question.
Yeah.
Chuck, I hate to tell you, Chuck, it's Mark McCarthy here, but Thin Mints are not a hard sell. If I walk by, I'm buying them. You don't have to ask me anything.
Yeah, that's true. But
I'm thinking of Mark McCarthy in a Girl Scout outfit right now at the grocery store.
Oh, you're very funny, Darren. That's not a good sight, I tell you that.
Oh,
no cookies sold for that day.
Can you imagine a Girl Scout with that voice?
Yeah, nice.
Oh, that's funny.
Hey, quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm loving everything I'm hearing, and I'm just now getting started. Probably I'll be out there first. The weather gets better here, probably first thing today or tomorrow. What do you say would be the most important things from someone that's just getting out there, just swinging the bat as many times as possible, or how about approaching the decision maker at the establishment you're trying to recruit?
Well, you know what? I tell you what, this is definitely, it's a contact sport. I mean, it truly, truly is. But I think you got to be, somewhat like pretty directed on what you want to do. And I don't know if you've seen any of the launch videos we have online. If you go online, you look at launch. It talks about what targets should you be approaching. And I would follow. If you want to do this the best way and get the best results out of any other method that we've ever seen, it's online. We've made a lot of videos and a lot of training materials on what we've seen work the absolute best. So what I would do is they're like 20 minutes. I'd watch those, and then I would go out and I would hit it with reckless abandon. Man, I would go out and I'd take the world by storm. And I'd follow that model exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Just click on launch. There's a welcome to launch. That I
sales
do.
process.
Yeah, go to
it's right
one that's called
right
launch.
above the sales process. It says warm launch. That's another Chuck
Okay.
Fowler video. That's fantastic, and you want to just do what he tells you to do, and it works. It works. We only send you in directions that we found to work. We don't send you anywhere. Like later, you'll find a cold call video, and I think that's Chuck too. And he says when the intro is like, well, if you're just in a coma for 20 years, you just dropped in from the moon, and you can't do it, then do this. But I wouldn't. It's way far back in the list of things that we would start off with. But anyway, go there. I don't want to steal the thunder or miss a good point, because this is solid, perfect stuff.
Excellent.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah,
Thank
great,
you.
man. Welcome to the team, by the way, too.
Appreciate
it. Yeah, we appreciate you being here. All right, guys, anything else before we part our ways and meet next week?
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah.
Chuck, this is Tony. I have a question.
Yeah.
A customer walks into a shop, and he doesn't have a credit card.
Sounds like a joke. Yeah,
No.
Okay.
No, I kind of wish it was because I got kind of blindsided. It's something I don't know about. I don't know how new it is. He walks into the shop. He wants to buy some merchandise. He doesn't have a credit card, but he wants to pay with his cell phone. What's that all about? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's probably most likely Apple Pay, and I was actually at a Sports Authority this weekend purchasing something, and a gal in front of me did the exact same thing. She just held her phone up to the credit card terminal,
right.
And it's and this certainly. Basically, it's something they can store on their phone that they can list all their credit cards in it. They can select which credit card they want to use to pay whenever, and the credit card terminal reads it. I know it, but I'm having a brain fart. Maybe.
Well, it's just like
what's the technology called though? What's the technology?
Near-field communication.
Near-field communication. Yeah, I couldn't remember. So it's just reading it from the phone.
Okay, is it something that we need to be concerned with going forward, or is it a special pad or something that they use to process this type of payment where, it's something like it's the coming thing, or is that what we need to think about?
Well, I think it's going to become, I don't know how prevalent it'll become. I mean, Google Wallet's been out for how long, John? I think like 5 years.
7 years, and nobody uses it. But
yeah, no one
uses
it.
Just, it's something that we do. It's some merchants, it depends where you are. Like if you're in Manhattan or some place where people think they're trendy, and everybody's got an iPhone, then it's probably going to be more common. If you're in Minneapolis, or if you're in the middle of Iowa, nobody cares. But
it's the kind of a thing. Let me the advertisement.
Let me tell you what it is, and then you can.
Okay.
So, like Chuck said, you load a card in your phone, and your phone transmits a little bit of data. You have to have something that reads it, right? So, if they want that, then they just have to have something that can suck in the thing that your phone's transmitting. Most merchants don't have it. We have terminals, and Amy, you can get a pen pad or something that will also read it. So if you can go out and we can get merchants to get set up on it. It's no big deal. If that's what they want, God bless America, we can do it. We can do most everything.
Yeah. Well, what the big hype is with a lot of this fraud activity that prevents fraud because the card is not ever going to be compromised.
Prevent fraud, but it's not a fraud prevention measure. It's a convenience thing. So what it is that you don't have to pull out any cards. You just wave. You have your phone out anyway because everybody's texting, and you just wave it by the thing that reads it, and away you go. It's set up to be. It's not a fraud prevention. It's a convenience feature.
Right,
okay.
And that has no bearing on the sales process as far as going out and getting a copy of their last 2 months' merchant statements.
Right. Yeah.
They still are going to get those the same way. They always you still want to go to the same thing. Hey, give me a copy of your last 2 months' merchant statements. Let me put something together for you. You're still going to do that, regardless of how they're taking the card. Sure.
Right. I was just concerned that it may be a unique kind of like something brand new that we're going to be playing catch up on, but it's not.
We've had it ever since it first came out. So
okay.
So you can ask, if you're in a part of the world, where are you?
I'm in northeastern PA. I'm close to New York, say about an hour away. Some merchants in New Jersey.
As you're dealing with merchants, as you're dealing with them and going through, you can go, hey, because one of the things I love to ask them is where do you see yourself? Where do you see business going? What do you want to grow into? Do you have an interest in do you just slap something into your phones? You can take mobile payments. What about Apple Pay? Do you want it for iPhones? What are some things that you've seen or heard about that maybe we could add that you'd think would be fun? And then get them dreaming a little bit, just like they were when they first started their business. Because the best question, one of the best questions up front to ever ask a merchant is, how'd you get into this business? Like when you watch a video and he's talking about discovery. Discovery is like, how'd you get into this business? And then man, it's like they're pulling up their wallet talking about their kids. It's huge. And then what you want to do is, well, where do you want to go? Where do you want to, have you thought about these kinds of things? Because we can, if you want that, we can do that, of course. And it takes it away from this grindy sales weirdness that the rest of the world does and turns it into something hell of a lot more fun and exciting. Does that make sense?
Right.
Great.
So
all right,
that's
guys,
where that comes in.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
We've run out of time. We've run out of time. We really appreciate everybody coming today. Awesome. Great stuff. Thanks for bringing it. Next week, we'll roll out what the topic is probably midweek this week. But next week, same time, same place. And let's get out and let's now, just so you know, just so you know, this is the best time of the year to be in this business right now. This is when we see more merchant activity, new accounts, merchant switch. This is it. So now's the time to get out and make some hay. Get with your ADs, get your strategies down, get out there, and let's start making you guys a little money. So thanks for coming, and have a great week, everybody.